Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we really try to unravel these complex stories, pull out the crucial details, and help you understand what's truly going on beneath the surface. Today, we're plunging into a case that's really captured public attention, the Kouri Richins case. It's a narrative just brimming with surprising facts, layers of intrigue, and some starkly conflicting accounts.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we've got, well, quite a stack of sources, everything from official court documents, detailed police affidavits, to comprehensive news reports, in-depth interviews with family members from both sides, importantly, and analyses from legal experts. Our mission today is really to help you navigate this incredibly intricate web of allegations, motives, defenses, just to truly grasp what's most important in this whole unfolding story. You'll get a shortcut, really, to being well-informed on a case that is, well, much more complex than the headlines might suggest.
Absolutely, and this deep dive is going to offer you a thorough understanding of how this seemingly perfect family life, in a quiet Utah town, how it allegedly spiraled into this really dramatic legal battle. We're talking secret debts, clandestine affairs, and a chilling series of alleged poisoning attempts, culminating tragically in the loss of a young father. We're going to explore how a life that looks so idyllic from the outside could, well, harbor such profound hidden realities. Okay, so let's start where it all began with what looked like, the classic love story. Our sources tell us that Kouri Darden and Eric Richins first crossed paths back in 2009. It was at a Home Depot in Park City, Utah. Kouri was working as a cashier there, and Eric, he was a local mason and contractor frequent customer. It really does sound like something straight out of a rom-com, doesn't it?
It does, initially.
The investigation actually revealed Eric, who was 27 then, thought Kouri was stunning, but was apparently quite nervous about asking her out.
The meet-cute nerves.
Right. Supposedly took some playful teasing, some encouragement from another Home Depot employee to finally nudge him into going through her checkout line, starting a conversation. Once he realized how sweet and easygoing she was, he apparently gathered the courage, asked her out, and from that point on, they became pretty much inseparable.
It certainly presents that way, almost like a fairy tale beginning. They got married in 2013, started building their family pretty quickly, welcoming 3 sons, Carter, Ashton, and Weston. And Eric's background, it paints this picture of really traditional, deeply rooted values. He grew up on this picturesque cattle ranch in Kamas, Utah. His family was well known there, apparently buildings even named after them, showing their long-standing presence in the community.
Wow, really established.
Very much so. He was into sports growing up, showed a strong work ethic. After high school, he did a 2-year Mormon mission down in Mexico City, became fluent in Spanish there, which he later built on with a bachelor's degree in international studies and a Spanish minor from the University of Utah. And then in 2009, the same year he met Kouri, he starts the successful masonry company, CN Masonry, with his best friend.
Busy year for him.
Absolutely. And he was consistently described by everyone who knew him, his loved ones, as just a devoted son, brother, and father. They said he lived for those boys, idolized them. His sister, Katie, mentioned how he'd coach or assistant coach all their sports teams, soccer, basketball, baseball, spent countless hours teaching them. He was really seen as this family man, trying to be the best father and husband, deeply invested in their kids.
And Kouri, she was born in 1990. She showed a strong entrepreneurial streak, too, a real work ethic. She had various jobs, ran her own housekeeping business for a while, worked at a design firm. And then in 2019, she launched her own real estate venture, Kouri Richins Real Estate, focused mainly on flipping houses.
Right, a demanding business, takes capital, market insight.
Definitely. Her marketing director even described her as having something that a lot of people don't, called her intelligent, common sense, a brilliant young lady. So on the surface, you see them both apparently thriving professionally, living this enviable lifestyle, traveling the world a lot.
Lots of travel photos.
Exactly. Eric loved hunting, off-roading, and together they explored far-off places, posting these pictures depicting a really glamorous life. What's so striking now, looking back, is how meticulously they maintained this public image. Success, happiness.
The facade.
Right. Kouri's mother even described their relationship as pretty close to perfect. Said they both lived very well, bought and spent what they wanted. But as we now understand, that facade was hiding some deep, troubling realities.
Yeah, beneath that seemingly idyllic life, the cracks were definitely forming. And what's incredible is how quickly the family's perspective, Eric's family's perspective, shifted right after he passed away. We start uncovering these deep-seated issues, much more than just typical marital spats. For instance, Eric apparently wanted Kouri to be a stay-at-home mom. That probably stemmed from his more traditional background.
Makes sense, given his upbringing.
But Kouri, she was fiercely independent, really insisted on working. She said clearly, that domestic lifestyle just wasn't her personality, wasn't how she was raised. She wanted to be more and do more than be a homemaker. That fundamental difference in their goals, their aspirations, it created this persistent friction.
And apparently Eric's frequent hunting and fishing trips, that was another major point of conflict. Sources indicate he'd sometimes be gone for months, like 4 or 5 months a year, pursuing his passion for hunting.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, Kouri reportedly found it vexing, said she wanted him home a little more. And while they did try marriage counseling, it seems like those efforts were pretty superficial. Didn't really get to the root of the profound issues brewing, like one really egregious issue. Eric discovered Kouri had reportedly taken over $134,000 from his masonry business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, funds he'd specifically set aside for federal and state quarterly taxes. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a significant financial hit. And although Kouri eventually agreed to repay a much larger amount, like $515,000 that she'd reportedly taken from Eric overall.
Still, the trust.
Exactly. The trust. Once that's eroded by actions like that, it seemed irrevocably broken. It really raises the question, how deeply did these financial betrayals, these different life goals, affect Eric's sense of security, his perception of Kouri?
And this leads us to a really critical revelation. How much did those closest to them actually know or suspect before Eric passed? We find out Eric had confided in multiple family members. He gave them this absolutely chilling premonition. He told them straight up, if I die, you need to take a look at her because I think she's trying to kill me.
Oh my God.
That statement, given what happened later, it just deeply foreshadows everything. It casts a completely different, much darker light on that perfect marriage. Eric's family spokesperson explicitly said there was no question the family thought that right from the beginning, that Kouri might have been involved. Shows their profound suspicion even before the official investigation really got going.
That's not just an accusation then, that's a direct warning from Eric himself. Deeply disturbing. Okay, let's unpack this next part because, this is where the alleged motives become incredibly clear and, frankly, pretty unsettling. Prosecutors argue Kouri's real estate business, despite how it looked, was actually a facade, secretly drowning in immense debt. They allege she funded it using a $250,000 home equity line of credit, a HELOC on a home Eric owned before they even got married. And for anyone unfamiliar, a ECLC is basically borrowing against the value of your house. What's really striking here is that Eric allegedly didn't even know about this specific HELOC until his bank told him. If that's true, that's just a massive breach of trust. Financial deception on a huge scale.
Huge. Now, Kouri's defense argues differently, of course. They say taking on debt from lines of credit, well, that's just a normal part of the house flipping business. Expected, even. They claim the money would always be paid back when a home sold, and that Kouri and Eric reviewed bills together every month. They insist Eric was fully aware of all their finances, implying there was no secret debt.
Right. Two completely different stories there.
Completely. But the financial picture painted by the prosecution, it looks dire. They have a forensic accountant that's an expert who digs through financial records looking for fraud or discrepancies who's expected to testify. This accountant will apparently say Kouri was borrowing money at extremely high interest rates, often from private lenders, just to keep her venture afloat. Prosecutors claim that at one point in 2021, she defaulted on a loan, got sued by a company called Greengrass Holdings. And this happened just 3 months before Eric passed away.
Wow, the timing.
Exactly. And the scale of the alleged financial hole is just staggering. On the very day Eric died, Kouri reportedly owed $3.1 million. Plus, she was over-advanced by $254,000 on investments that prosecutors argue didn't even exist.
Didn't exist.
That's the allegation. Her personal account was reportedly in the negative that day, and she'd even been on the phone arguing with the IRS about a $189,000 charge. Compare that to Eric's estate, valued at $5 million, plus he was insured for over $2 million. The prosecution argues this financial desperation paints a really powerful motive.
And the investigation found this text exchange from October 2020 that really seems to bring Kouri's alleged desperation into sharp focus. She admitted to a friend she'd taken a lot, specifically mentioning the $250,000, and said she needed to be top-notch careful because she was scared Eric would find out. And her fear wasn't just about the money. She explicitly said she was worried Eric would hire an expensive lawyer to fight for custody of their boys. She wrote, and this is a direct quote, "There's nothing more important to me than the boys and making sure custody is always going to be at least 50-50.
That suggests a really deep fear of losing control over the kids.
Exactly. Combined with this motive to keep her perceived family structure intact, you can almost feel the desperation, right? This tightening vice of alleged financial deception, and maybe the lengths she'd go to avoid it all unraveling. Prosecutors also contend that forensic accountant will testify Kouri had no actual legitimate investments to repay these loans, making her situation even more dire than she let on, pushing her, they argue, right to the brink.
And then, beyond the financial mess, prosecutors allege Kouri was also having a long-term affair with a handyman, Robert Grossman, who worked on her properties. This adds another really critical, deeply personal layer to the alleged motive. It suggests not just a desire to escape the debts, but maybe a profound yearning for a totally new life. One without the perceived complications and constraints of her marriage to Eric, avoiding a messy divorce.
Right. And the investigation uncovered some pretty concrete evidence of this relationship. Apparently, Kouri had booked a 5-night, all-inclusive vacation for herself and Robert in St. Martin.
And the timing.
The timing is incredible. This trip was scheduled for April 2022, just a month after Eric passed away.
Wow. That detail suggests some clear future planning that, seemingly didn't include Eric. Really reinforces the prosecution's narrative about her wanting to move on.
And what's truly incredible, and frankly chilling, are the text messages they found. In December 2021, Kouri texted a friend, stating directly, "It would be better if Eric was dead."
Just wow.
The very next day, just 24 hours later, she texted her paramour, Robert, declared, "I'm in love with a man that's not my husband." And then this really complex sentiment, "I want to, but I can't break up my family. It's having our cake and eating it too. I just want to love you."
That's incredibly brazen.
It is. And what's more, Robert apparently replied, "I thought you were getting a divorce." To which Kouri responded, kind of dismissively, "What if that's in a year? You're just supposed to sit around and wait for me." No, and I would never ask you to, LOL.
That exchange, if you're the prosecution, it vividly illustrates Kouri's alleged impatience, her desire to maybe bypass the complexities, the potential financial fallout of a divorce.
Absolutely.
So if you connect this to the bigger picture, these texts, combined with her alleged financial distress, they really highlight this profound conflict between her perceived reality, the struggling business, the unhappy marriage, and her desires, for financial freedom and this new romantic life. And there's further evidence that paints a deeply suspicious picture. Kouri's online activity. Sources reveal she researched illegal drugs, even asked people how to get fentanyl back in late January 2022.
That timing. Again, very striking given what happened later.
Right. And on top of that, she applied for another $100,000 life insurance policy on Eric. Allegedly forged his signature on the documents, had them sent to her P.O. box, all just weeks before he passed. That policy was processed, issued by February 4th, became effective just 10 days before the alleged Valentine's Day poisoning attempt. The timeline here becomes absolutely critical. It suggests, for the prosecution, a clear progression of alleged intent and planning. Premeditation. Hashtag alleged attempts and the tragic culmination.
Okay, let's rewind a bit to what Eric's family describes as the first alleged attempt on his life. This dates back to 2019, during a vacation in Greece. Eric and Kouri were traveling with friends, and the family claims Eric became just violently ill after Kouri gave him a drink.
Violently ill.
Yeah. They vividly recall Eric expressing his belief right then that she had tried to poison him. His family members even said he was so shaken by it, he told them directly, if anything happened to him, his wife was likely behind it. If that's true, that's a really chilling early warning sign.
It definitely raises that question. Was this an early warning, or was it a tragic misunderstanding? Because Kouri's family, they vehemently refute this story. They offer other explanations. Maybe Eric was on medication for Lyme disease, it reacted poorly with alcohol, a bartender mistakenly served him. Another theory from the defense is he just ate a bad sandwich. They specifically claim Eric asked for a virgin cocktail, got an alcoholic one by mistake, and that caused the severe illness. Kouri's attorney stated that besides the family's assertion, there doesn't seem to be anything else out there that supports that, highlighting a lack of independent proof.
So it's their word against hers, essentially.
Exactly. The differing accounts really highlight this deep split between the family's narratives, makes it hard to know the truth. But Eric's family sees it as an early, unmistakable sign of alleged intent. This stark contrast, it really underscores the challenge for a jury, and for us listening. How do you figure out the truth when accounts are so completely opposite, especially with no third-party evidence?
Okay, the next alleged attempt, this one has far more concrete details and is really disturbing in its implications. Valentine's Day 2022. Kouri allegedly prepares a takeout sandwich for Eric, even includes a love note. What happened next, according to prosecutors, completely changed the perception of their marriage. After taking just one single bite of the sandwich, Eric reportedly had this severe allergic reaction, broke out in hives, struggled profoundly to breathe.
Oh my God.
Had to use his son's EpiPen. The emergency adrenaline shot for severe allergies, took Benadryl, and eventually blacked out. This speed and severity just points to something highly unusual.
And his texts to a friend that same day, they're chilling, expressing just profound fear. You almost lost me. Minutes later, he calls another friend, states directly, I think I almost died. I think my wife tried to poison me.
Wow, direct accusation.
Direct communication. Not just fear, but clear, immediate suspicion about Kouri's involvement. He also reportedly told his sisters and parents that if he passed away, they needed to look at Kouri because she's been trying to poison him. It's really notable that the judge in the case specifically voiced interest in these comments during the preliminary hearing, recognizing their potential weight, maybe as dying declarations or expressions of fear.
But Kouri, she completely refutes how severe this reaction was. She later texted a friend, really minimizing it, claiming Eric never broke out into hives or used an EpiPen, just said the sandwich hurt his stomach so he was going to take a nap.
A huge contradiction.
A massive one between her account and Eric's immediate reactions and what he told his friends and family. She even emphasized that Eric later felt well enough to go coach one of their son's games, implying, it couldn't have been that bad. Yet phone records from that same day, they suggest a different set of priorities for Kouri. She allegedly left the house to spend time with the handyman, Robert Grossman, instead of caring for a sick Eric. Reportedly even lied to Eric in a text, saying she was waiting for the cabinet installer guy at one of her property.
That pattern of alleged deception, the conflicting priorities, it paints a compelling, and for the prosecution, a pretty damning narrative about her actions and alleged intentions that day. Less than a month later, on either March 3rd or 4th, 2022, prosecutors allege Kouri carried out her ultimate plan. The couple was reportedly celebrating a new house flipping deal. A massive one, a 20,000 square foot mansion in Heber City.
20,000 square feet, wow.
Huge. And this was a particularly contentious investment. Eric's family claims he never truly supported it, asserting he was never in favor of that deal, said he and Kouri had been actively arguing about buying it. Kouri's family, though, totally different story. They claim Eric was 100% on board. Kouri's mother recalled Eric saying, "Let's have a shot, come on, let's celebrate Kouri." Again, this stark difference really highlights the deep family divide, how each side interprets every single detail.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kouri initially told investigators a specific version of events from that night, said she made Eric a Moscow mule. But apparently her story varied over time. Sometimes she claimed they made drinks together. Other times she said she made them alone and brought one to him.
Inconsistencies.
Right. She also mentioned Eric consumed a THC gummy before bed, which she said was something he typically did. Kouri claims they then brushed their teeth, went to bed together around 9:30, 9:45 p.m. Those inconsistencies about the drinks, they later become a real point of scrutiny for investigators, potentially raising questions about her truthfulness.
So, according to Kouri's version of events, shortly after they went to bed, one of their sons woke up, had a nightmare. Kouri stated she went to his bedroom to help him fall back asleep and reportedly fell asleep in his room herself. She claimed she woke up around 3 a.m., returned to her own bed with Eric, only to find him completely unresponsive, cold to the touch.
Oh, terrible.
She immediately called 911, claimed she performed CPR as the dispatcher instructed her. However, when the EMTs arrived, their observations raised some significant questions. They noted no active compressions were being done when they got there, and they observed blood and foam in Eric's mouth, which made them question if CPR had actually been performed by anyone before they arrived. One EMT explicitly told the lead detective that Eric's mouth only started foaming when they attempted CPR. That's a critical detail. Could imply no one else had tried to resuscitate him.
That's a crucial distinction. So the subsequent investigation, it revealed the tragic and chilling truth. Eric, a healthy 39-year-old man, passed away from fentanyl intoxication.
Fentanyl.
The autopsy confirmed he had 5 times the lethal dosage of fentanyl in his system. And crucially, he also had quetiapine in his system. That's an antipsychotic drug, typically used for things like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia.
And it was prescribed to Kouri, right, not Eric.
Exactly. Prescribed to Kouri, not Eric. Its presence, alongside that lethal dose of fentanyl, raises specific and alarming questions about how he passed. This shifted the whole narrative completely. From maybe a suspected aneurysm, which the first responders initially thought,
Right.
to something far more sinister, deliberate. The medical examiner also determined the fentanyl found was illicit fentanyl, not medical grade. That's another crucial distinction.
Yeah, suggests it wasn't from a legitimate prescription, illegally obtained.
Exactly. Counters any claim of an accidental overdose from prescribed meds, and the fact it was ingested orally further indicates a deliberate act rather than, say, casual drug use. Hashtag the aftermath and the web of evidence.
Okay, so what happens immediately after Eric passes away? This part is truly fascinating and, well, deeply unsettling to many. Just 2 days after his sudden shocking death, Kouri reportedly seals the deal on that multi-million-dollar mansion by herself.
2 days.
2 days. And not only that, she then throws a large party there, celebrating the acquisition at the very house where Eric had just passed away.
That's hard to process.
Right. That sequence of actions strikes investigators and many observers as highly unusual, remarkably insensitive given the circumstances. Eric's family spokesperson called it cold-hearted greed, speculated Kouri needed some money in a hurry, offering that as a motive for such rapid celebratory actions.
It's a jarring image for sure, and it gets even more complicated. Within 48 hours of Eric's passing, she also allegedly hired a locksmith to drill into Eric's personal safe, which apparently contained over $125,000 in cash plus important documents. When Eric's sister, Amy, tried to intervene, she told Kouri she didn't have the authority to get into the safe without permission from Eric's trustee. And the trustee, that was Eric's other sister, Katie, meaning Katie was legally designated to manage Eric's assets for the kids, effectively bypassing Kouri.
Ah, the secret trust.
Right. When Amy tried to stop her, Kouri allegedly physically attacked Amy. The accusation is she punched Amy in the neck and face. This led to an assault charge against Kouri. She later pleaded no contest, meaning she didn't admit guilt, but accepted the conviction. Her family, though, argued it was just a mutual pushing match, high emotions. Kouri's brother said, all they did was push. Both of them were trying to swing over the top of me, trying to paint it as less aggressive.
But that whole volatile incident, it exposed this critical secret Eric had kept from Kouri, a secret that totally changed the financial picture after he passed. He had meticulously placed his estate, his business interests, into a secret trust for their children, naming his sister Katie as the trustee. This effectively cut Kouri out of managing or directly accessing his significant assets.
And he made this decision after consulting a divorce attorney.
Reportedly, yes. After he'd consulted a divorce attorney back in November 2020, apparently having realized the extent of Kouri's alleged financial betrayal and debt. Kouri was reportedly furious when she learned about this trust, exclaimed something like, "I can't believe you people, how can you do this? This is my house." To which the attorney present apparently replied, "No, it's not."
Oof.
Yeah. Her subsequent actions after learning this, trying to get Eric cremated, which his family stopped, removing all but one photo of Eric from their home, allegedly blocking Eric's family from a golf tournament held in his name, with accusations she used the proceeds herself instead of for charity. These actions, combined with that initial party, they present this really complex, often contradictory picture of a grieving widow.
And the investigation, it kept turning up more digital breadcrumbs that just intensified the suspicion against Kouri. Detectives discovered her phone had been active. Multiple locks and unlocks, significant movement shown throughout the house, all during the time she claimed she was asleep in her son's room.
Right. The phone data showed stark inconsistencies with her story, indicated she wasn't just awake, but actively engaged, sending and receiving messages.
Directly contradicts her initial account of being sound asleep for hours. Really raises questions about her truthfulness.
Absolutely. And crucially, investigators found evidence of deleted text messages. Communications between Kouri and both the alleged drug dealer Carmen Lauber and her paramour, Robert Grossman. That act of dilution, if it's proven to be an attempt to hide information, that would be highly incriminating. But what's truly incredible, maybe the most striking detail here, is her Google search history after Eric passed away.
Oh yeah, this is wild.
The searches included things like, can deleted text messages be retrieved from an iPhone? Can FBI find deleted messages? Okay. Then, what is a lethal dose of fentanyl? Luxury prisons for the rich in America. How to pay someone to write a book about you. And even, what happens if you give Narcan to someone who doesn't need it? Narcan, of course, being the opioid overdose reversal drug.
That list, it just immediately raises the question, why would an innocent person who claims her husband died accidentally, be searching for those specific incriminating terms.
Exactly. Now, Kouri's defense argues these searches were made after Eric passed, after she realized she was being investigated. They argue the searches just reflect her curiosity about the accusations being thrown at her, not a sign of guilt or trying to cover something up.
A tough sell, maybe, but that's their argument. Okay, so this brings us to the really crucial allegations. How did Kouri allegedly get the fentanyl? The investigation zeroed in on information from Carmen Lauber. She was a housekeeper Kouri often hired. Lauber had a known criminal history, drug charges specifically. She was referred to as CL in court documents, had multiple counts of possession with intent to distribute.
Right, a history there.
Lauber told investigators under questioning that she supplied Kouri with fentanyl pills on 2 separate occasions in early 2022.
2 occasions, okay.
Lauber claimed the first time was around February 11th. Kouri paid cash for about 15 to 30 pills. Kouri allegedly claimed the pills were for an investor with a back injury. A detailed prosecutor sounds suspicious, given it was fentanyl. Just a week later, Kouri allegedly contacted Lauber again, asking for stronger fentanyl, even referencing Michael Jackson stuff.
Wow, the propofol reference.
Yeah, referring to propofol. This time, Lauber claimed Kouri paid her $1,300 with a check, drawn from her business account, and the timing of these alleged drug buys is incredibly tight. Just 1 week after this second alleged purchase, Eric passed away.
These alleged drug purchases line up incredibly closely with the alleged poisoning attempts. That forms a key pillar of the prosecution's case.
But the defense, they vehemently dispute Lauber's credibility. They highlight several factors they believe totally undermine her testimony, pointing directly to her extensive criminal record, the fact she was on probation for multiple drug distribution charges while she was being interviewed by investigators.
Right, raises questions about her motives.
Exactly. They question if she was pressured by law enforcement to cooperate. Detectives even admitted using common tactics to leverage charges for information during their interviews with her.
Yeah.
They explicitly told her how dire of a situation she's in.
Yeah.
So the critical question is, was Lauber's testimony coerced, influenced by the threat of her own legal trouble?
A very important question for the jury.
The defense also points out no text messages were ever found where Kouri explicitly asked Lauber for drugs. They argue that weakens the direct evidence of drug procurement. And furthermore, they emphasize, no fentanyl pills were ever found in the home. They state the prosecution has no evidence that there was fentanyl found in the home, nor have they provided any evidence that Kouri gave Eric the fentanyl. These points are absolutely central to the defense strategy, creating reasonable doubt. # legal twist in the road to trial. Okay, here's where the narrative takes a truly bizarre, almost unbelievable, ironic turn. March 2023. A full year after Eric passed away, Kouri self-publishes a children's book titled Are You With Me?
The grief book, yes.
Ostensibly created to help her 3 young kids cope with losing their father. Described as heartwarming and reassuring, gently guiding kids through grief, portraying Eric as an angel watching over them. She even went on local TV to promote it, appearing publicly as this grieving widow, stating she and her kids kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced. The irony, given what happened next, is just profound.
Profoundly stark, because just weeks after that TV appearance on May 8, 2023, Kouri Richins was arrested, charged with aggravated murder and drug possession. The book, once this public symbol of her grief, was swiftly pulled from shelves. Her public image completely transformed overnight from sympathetic widow to accused murderer.
Just a whiplash-inducing turn.
Totally. Prosecutors allege Kouri believed her husband's passing would just be treated as an accidental overdose, that nobody was going to be the wiser. Until, of course, the investigation uncovered this extensive web of alleged deception, ultimately leading to her arrest. It really highlights the challenge in figuring out the true narrative when a public persona is so carefully constructed.
And then another major bombshell drops. A handwritten letter, ominously titled Walk the Dog, is discovered in Kouri's jail cell.
Yeah, jailhouse letter. Yeah.
Prosecutors immediately alleged this was a blatant attempt at witness tampering, with explicit instructions for her brother Ronnie to testify falsely about Eric's alleged drug use. The letter specifically told Ronnie to claim Eric got fentanyl from Mexico, hid pills in an allergy bottle in his truck. It explicitly stated, quote, the connection has to be made with Mexico and drugs, and Ronnie will have messages to prove Eric confided in him about getting high.
I mean, this document, if it's seen as tampering, it's incredibly damaging to the defense.
Incredibly. But Kouri's defense, they countered swiftly. They argued the letter was just part of a fictional novel she was writing in jail, an alternate version of her life, exploring different scenarios. They maintained it was taken completely out of context from a much larger 65-page manuscript.
A fictional novel. That's their claim. It raises a crucial question about intent, how evidence is interpreted, especially when you consider attorney-client privilege, that legal concept protecting confidential communications between lawyers and clients. The defense argued seizing this letter violated that privilege, claiming it was part of her protected creative process. But prosecutors questioned, well, if it was truly fiction, why did she hold up these specific pages for her mother to read during a jail visit? Implying it was intended as instructions, not just story writing.
That's a complex piece of evidence.
Yeah.
Definitely open to very different interpretations.
And the plot thickened even further. Accusations were brought against Kouri's mother, Lisa Darden. Investigators looked into the circumstances surrounding the passing of Lisa Darden's former romantic partner back in 2006. That partner met their end from an oxycodone overdose, and Lisa was the sole beneficiary of her estate.
Wow.
An investigator noted that while the deceased woman did have a history of drug abuse, she was reportedly in recovery at the time she passed, potentially ruling out an accidental overdose. Now, the defense dismissed this as tragic but statistically common, pointing out the opioid crisis. Said opioid addiction and fentanyl overdose is a rampant problem throughout the country. But the prosecution suggested a possible pattern, especially given Lisa's apparent disdain for Eric found in text conversations on Kouri's phone. This accusation, while not directly tied to Eric's passing, it just introduces another layer of complexity, another potential angle for the prosecution.
Man, the layers just keep piling up.
They do. And the legal proceedings for Kouri Richins, they've been fraught with delays, which isn't unusual for complex murder trials. Kouri was denied bail. The judge cited the circumstances of this case weigh soundly against granting pretrial release, indicating concerns about flight risk or danger to the community. Then her initial defense team abruptly withdrew in May 2024, cited an irreconcilable and non-waivable situation stemming from a related civil case.
That caused more delays, more speculation.
Exactly. Significant delays fueled public speculation. Kouri was then assigned a new team of public defenders, further prolonging the whole pretrial process. This series of setbacks just underscores the inherent challenges, the complexities of such a high-profile case.
So, despite the defense arguing strenuously that there was no substantial evidence directly linking Kouri, arguing Eric might have self-inflicted the overdose. The judge at the preliminary hearing found probable cause for all 11 charges against Kouri. And just to clarify for everyone, a preliminary hearing is where a judge decides if there's enough evidence, probable cause, to even proceed to trial. It's a lower standard than guilty beyond a reasonable doubt needed for conviction.
Right, just enough to move forward.
And the charges include aggravated murder and that attempted murder charge for Valentine's Day. The judge explicitly stated Kouri had financial and marital affair motives to cause Eric's passing, and that there was probable cause she purchased a controlled substance. Kouri has formally pleaded not guilty to everything.
So the trial is currently set for April 28, 2025, expected to last about 4 weeks. A significant undertaking, given the amount of evidence, the number of witnesses. If she's convicted, Kouri faces 25 years to life in prison. The death penalty is off the table. And beyond the criminal case, there's this ongoing, highly contentious custody battle for the 3 boys. They're currently living with Eric's family.
Oh, heartbreaking for the kids.
Absolutely. Both families are fighting fiercely for custody, each claiming deep love and concern, while also publicly suggesting the other side might be motivated by the considerable money from Eric's estate. It just adds this intensely emotional layer to an already tragic situation. The children's future really hangs in the balance.
And Kouri herself, she broke her silence. An audio message released from jail, declaring, "This means war," insisting, "What I really didn't do is murder my husband." She claims she's been silent for a year, locked away from my kids, my family, my life, living with the media, telling the world who they think I am, what they think I've done, or how they think I've lived. You can really sense her defiance, her determination to fight these charges. She stated unequivocally she will not give up, not give in. Sets the stage for what's going to be a dramatic, closely watched trial. #tag outro. So we've taken a really deep dive into the complex, often completely conflicting narratives surrounding the Kouri Richins case. From what looked like this picture-perfect life, allegedly spiraling into financial desperation, a secret affair, to these chilling allegations of poisoning attempts, and that truly shocking publication of a grief book just before her arrest. This story, I mean, it has more twists than a mountain road. It's a really compelling example of how easily a carefully built public image can just unravel under intense scrutiny.
Absolutely. We've thoroughly explored the prosecution's case. It's built on that foundation of alleged motive, financial, romantic, meticulous evidence pointing towards drug procurement, and Kouri's, well, unsettling behavior before and after Eric's passing. And we've also laid out the defense's counter-arguments. They consistently question the credibility of key witnesses like Carmen Lauber, emphasize the lack of direct physical evidence of fentanyl in the home, and offer those alternative interpretations of the digital evidence, like the Google searches and the letter. It truly presents a profound challenge for legal interpretation, for public perception. Both sides present these compelling, yet often diametrically opposed stories of what happened.
Yeah, this case really forces you to consider the immense pressures people can face and the extreme lengths they might allegedly go to, whether it's to protect a hidden life full of secrets or, from her perspective, to fight passionately for what she believes is the truth. As the trial approaches, with so many questions still being debated, with so much at stake, what does this all mean for the ultimate quest for justice? And what unresolved questions might just linger even after a verdict is reached? And perhaps most profoundly, you have to wonder, what will be the lasting impact of this whole unfolding story on the many lives caught in its wake, especially those three young boys, right at the very center of this tragic and incredibly complex situation?